Whitney Houston had a voice that could stop the world. Powerful, pure, and unmatched, it made her one of the greatest singers of all time. But what happens when the thing that makes you legendary also becomes the weight you can't put down? For Whitney, her voice wasn't just her gift. It was her identity, her ticket to fame, and in many ways, her prison. She lived a life filled with triumphs and tragedies, all under the shadow of that extraordinary talent. Today, we're looking at why Whitney Houston, despite all her success, couldn't escape the very thing that made her unforgettable. Whitney's gift wasn't something she had to search for. It was there from the start. Born in 1963 to gospel singer Sissy Houston and raised in Newark, New Jersey, she began singing in the church choir as a child. Surrounded by music through her family and her famous cousins, Dionne Warwick and Dee Dee Warwick, Whitney's voice developed in a world where talent was nurtured and celebrated. But from the very beginning, that voice set her apart, creating expectations that would follow her for life. Even as a young girl, people weren't just listening. They were expecting greatness every time she opened her mouth. By her teens, Whitney was already modeling and performing in clubs with her mother. At just 19, she signed with Arista Records under Clive Davis, who saw her as a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Her debut album in 1985 became an instant sensation, producing multiple #1 hits. The world had found its perfect voice, and critics praised her for her flawless tone and range. But that perfection came with pressure. Whitney wasn't just a singer anymore, she was a brand. Every performance had to meet impossible standards, and the fear of falling short began to creep into her story. Whitney became a pioneer in bringing Black female artists into the mainstream pop spotlight. Songs like How Will I Know and I Wanna Dance with Somebody dominated radio across genres. Her ability to blend R&B, pop, and gospel set a new standard for commercial success. But that crossover appeal also came with criticism. Some accused her of being too pop or not black enough, forcing her to navigate a constant tug-of-war over her identity. She was caught between audiences, trying to please everyone while staying true to herself, a balancing act that took its toll. Whitney's performance of The Star-Spangled Banner at the 1991 Super Bowl is still considered one of the best in history. Her soundtrack for The Bodyguard, especially the powerhouse ballad I Will Always Love You, cemented her status as a legend. That single became the best-selling by a female artist ever. But with each success, the bar was raised higher. Every new project had to outshine the last, and the pressure to deliver another once-in-a-lifetime performance became relentless. Her voice was no longer just a gift. It was a demand from the world that never stopped. Whitney's public image was carefully crafted. America's sweetheart with the perfect smile and golden voice. But behind the scenes, she struggled with the expectations of fame, a demanding schedule, and the loneliness that came with being constantly in the spotlight. She wanted to be more than the image on the album cover, but every move was scrutinized. Fame didn't just give her opportunities, it trapped her in a persona she couldn't always relate to. That disconnect between the public Whitney and the private Whitney would only grow deeper as her career went on. In 1992, Whitney married R&B singer Bobby Brown. Their relationship was intense, passionate, and at times turbulent. While they were often portrayed as the perfect music couple, their marriage became tabloid fodder, overshadowed by rumors of infidelity, arguments, and substance abuse. Many blame Bobby for introducing Whitney to drugs, though she later admitted her issues started before their relationship. The marriage blurred the lines between love and chaos, and for years it became one of the most talked about and misunderstood parts of her life. By the late 90s and early 2000s, Whitney's struggles with drug use were becoming public. Missed performances, erratic behavior, and a visibly changing appearance fueled speculation and concern. Interviews like her infamous crack is whack moment showed flashes of defensiveness and vulnerability. The pressure of living up to her past success combined with personal battles made it harder for her to focus on her craft. Her voice, though still remarkable, began to show strain. The same instrument that had brought her fame was now at risk of being lost entirely. Whitney's family was deeply involved in her career, from her mother's musical guidance to her father's business involvement. While this gave her a strong support network, it also created tensions, especially when money and control became issues. At the same time, the music industry wasn't letting up. Labels and promoters wanted the Whitney Houston they could market, not necessarily the woman she was becoming. She was pulled in every direction, with little room to breathe or simply exist outside of her superstar status. Despite her struggles, Whitney tried to reclaim her career multiple times. In 2009, she released I Look to You, which debuted at #1. Her voice had changed. It was huskier, less effortless, but it still carried emotion that few could match. Fans were hopeful, but the pressures of touring and public scrutiny weighed heavily. Her 2010 tour received mixed reviews, and it was clear that the years of strain had taken their toll. Still, she kept pushing forward, determined to remind the world and herself that she was more than her setbacks. For Whitney, her voice was both her blessing and her burden. It gave her everything: fame, wealth, influence, but it also became the standard she could never escape. Every performance was compared to her prime, every note judged against her perfect past. The fear of not measuring up haunted her. Even when she wanted to step back, the world still demanded the Whitney they remembered, not the woman she was in that moment. It's hard to live up to a legend, especially when that legend is yourself. In early 2012, Whitney was preparing to attend Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy party. On February 11th, she was found unresponsive in her Beverly Hills hotel room and later pronounced dead. The cause was ruled as accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use listed as contributing factors. She was just 48 years old. Her passing stunned the world, not only because of her talent, but because so many had hoped she'd find peace and stability. It felt like the end of an era, and a sobering reminder of how quickly even the brightest lights can dim. Whitney Houston's voice is still unmatched. She influenced generations of singers and redefined what it meant to be a vocal powerhouse. Her songs remain timeless, and her performances still give people chills decades later. But her story is also a cautionary tale about the pressures of fame, the dangers of perfection, and the personal battles that no amount of talent can shield you from. She couldn't escape her own voice, but in the end, that voice continues to inspire, heal, and connect people around the world. That's a legacy that will never fade. Whitney Houston gave the world a gift unlike any other, a voice that will live forever. But her story reminds us that even the most extraordinary talent comes with its own challenges. If this journey through her life moved you, hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves her music, and subscribe to Behind the Glory. Because the more we understand the people behind the headlines, the more we truly appreciate the beauty and the cost of greatness.